Hey there! Welcome to another strength-flavored Kinstretch class today. We're going to be working on some push-ups. I have my lovely friend Marley here to help, and she's ready to wear herself out with some of those push-ups because today's going to be a bit of a burner of a class. That said, you're going to want to grab your props, kind of gather those together. You'll want to find something, we'll use a bench here, that allows you to elevate your hands for getting the right height on your push-up. So if you feel real solid with push-ups on the ground, that will be fine. If you're just getting started with push-ups or maybe restarting with push-ups, you might try a countertop, that might be the right height, or a chair that's somewhere in the middle. When we dive into the class, you'll have a chance to sort of see and experiment and find the right height, but just start hunting around thinking about what you might use for that. Also, you're going to want some wall space. We're going to do everything sort of from kneeling and from the floor, but you could do it from standing as well if your open wall is more of a standing height. And then lastly, trusty yoga block will come into play a little later on as well. So let's go ahead and actually start up by warming up the upper body, warming up the scapula by facing the wall. And you can come up to standing or in tall kneeling, which is what I'll have Marley show, and place both hands on the wall a little wider than shoulder width apart, and then really take a second to straighten out your elbows. We're going to be working a lot on that tricep strength today, so it's nice to check in on feeling that back of arm here as you set up, and then keep that in your focus as we start moving the scapula. So slide your shoulder blades together, then from there start to shrug your shoulder blades up. Keep that height as you push the wall away and feel those shoulder blades slide apart. And then finally pull your shoulder blades into your front pockets. Just keep going in this direction. Shoulder blades together, then up, then forward and down. And try to slowly push your way further into each of those directions. So maybe you get a little bit more active pull together of your shoulder blades. Or maybe you get a little more sense of pulling your shoulder blades down your body. The whole time, keep track of those elbows so that you're not inadvertently letting the elbows bend as you move through. And then wherever you might be, pause and just switch directions. So now you push the wall away before shrugging up to your ears, sliding those shoulder blades back, and then hunting for that feeling of pulling shoulder blades into your back pockets. Keep going at your own pace. And along with those elbows, you can also tune into your rib cage. When your hands are on the wall, it's a tendency to let those ribs flare, and that's a major piece we're going to be working on with the push-up form today. So tune in there for these last 10 seconds of scapular cars. Good. 3, 2, 1, and relax. Very nice. Okay, now shift to the floor, and we're going to spend just a little dedicated time for the wrists. So start here with just your hands free, make 2 fists, and drive your elbows into your rib cage so you feel nice and active through your upper body. I like to pretend that I'm holding on to 2 hammers, so it feels like some real work, not just for the wrist, but for the whole arm. And then with that setup, start thinking hammer down so that your wrists move into, we say, lateral flexion, and then hammer up so that that wrist moves into medial flexion. As you keep going back and forth, really spend that moment to fight for a little bit more and hunt for a little more contraction on the sides of your wrists. And then also make sure, Marley's doing a nice job here, make sure your forearms are not twisting or rotating in order to give you a little bit more reach with the knuckles. We really want to start moving just that wrist joint independent of the rest of the arm. Great. Just keep warming that up. Another few reps. If it's feeling good, you could squeeze your fist tighter, squeeze your elbows into your body. And then when you relax, you should kind of note like, oh yeah, I was working pretty hard in the upper body, so this is functioning as a warm-up. Then shake that out, and we're going to come down to the ground to actually bias just a little bit more motion in each of those directions. So you're going to be setting the kind of webbing of your thumb and first finger onto the ground. As you can see, Marley has to reach her arms pretty far out to the side in order to get that, and you might need to reach even further, or you might be able to come in narrower. But what we want is to try to get that end of your forearm as close to the ground as possible so that you're really anchoring your hand on the floor. Yeah. Once you get close, you can start gently and moving around like with small motion, so micro adjusting to find the line of tension that might be on that inside of your arm. The other micro adjustment I like to make here is rotating the shoulder while keeping that webbing on the floor. So that'll show up as elbows twisting, and that will change which line of tension gets on stretch. Good, taking a few more seconds, settle into your line of tension. And then we're gonna add a pales contraction, a nice strong isometric here. Starting light though, ask the webbing of your hands to get a little heavier on the ground. As you get a feel for that, you might sense into bringing more of your body weight onto your hands, but a very small adjustment. And then further increase that pales contraction by thinking of dragging the hands towards each other through the floor, but don't let anything move. So we're just activating more tissue along this line of tension. Hold this pales contraction that you've found for 5, 4, 3, 2, stay in position and just smoothly relax that effort. Once you're back to relaxed 0% effort, you can come out of the position and shift now to your forearms on the ground in front of you. Back to that hammer hold position with your wrists. Okay, so now this shape, the last shape we were working on that lateral flexion, this shape now gives us a chance to work on medial flexion, which is probably the tightest corner of the wrist, so you might not get much motion here. But to sense into what you might get, bring those hammers up again and see, do you get a little daylight underneath your pinky side? Okay, that's the extent of your medial flexion of your wrist, all right? So now set those knuckles back down, and now you're gonna lift your elbows instead and see how much can you bring those elbows up again without losing the meaty part of that side of your hand on the floor, okay? Ideally, you'd find a stretch here, but it's very uncommon for this tissue to actually feel like stretch. Okay. Once you feel like you've maxed out that amount of medial flexion, let's do a little pales contraction here as well. So start asking your fist to get heavier. This should feel like something happening in your upper body and shoulders. Again, micro adjust more body weight onto those hands. And then finally, without moving anything, imagine your hands are super glued to the floor and you're trying to pull the floor towards your knees. Go ahead and ramp that up to the greatest safe effort you can, specifically trying to find that contraction on the side of your forearm. 3, 2, 1, and slowly relax before coming out of the shape and shaking those wrists out. So the idea with those pales contractions, they shine a little spotlight onto the sides of your forearms. So now let's return to just one more set of wrist capsule cars. 2 tight fists to hold on to the imaginary hammers, elbows squeezed into your ribs, and then hammer down, trying to see if you can find even just 1% more contraction and therefore 1% more opening on the opening side, more stretch. And then go the other way, hammer up. Again, this is the tighter direction, so you're looking for 1% more contraction on the top side, maybe a little stretch on the bottom side. Keep going back and forth here, 20 more seconds. Giving your wrists some very important nutrition and mobility inputs, because very often the wrists are the limiting factor for body weight push-ups or other body weight movements you might be working on, and that's just no fun. We want to make sure your wrists are ready for the party. Good, and 3, 2, 1, and relax. Great, shake that out. Okay, now again, you can come up to tall kneeling like Marley will show, or standing for our last warm-up movement of some spinal cars. Little different today, I really want to help you lock down your arms and shoulders. So as you set up here, you could hug a pillow or hug a yoga block, but I'm just going to have Marley wrap her arms as far around her body as possible. Good. And once you're there, you can kind of walk your fingertips even further, so you're really at end range in the shoulders. Now, if this is uncomfortable for you, then I would recommend a nice strong pillow that allows you that same feeling of squeeze, all right? So getting set up here, squeeze your glutes so that you're tucking your tailbone under and your hips are locked in place. And then we'll start the spinal car from the top of your spine down. So start your chin pulling into your neck, stretching the back of your neck, and then using your arms to hug yourself, stretch the upper back. Continue moving down your spine, finding as much stretch as you can on the back of your body without letting your butt come unsqueezed. Once you have found that end line, keep this rounded flexed shape and start to twist to the right as far as possible. Good. Now keep that rotation. Start moving from flexion into extension. So you start to lift your sternum while staying rotated and really find some length on the left side of your body. Once you're fully extended, start to twist to the left, moving through extension, keeping your glutes squeezed. When you're fully twisted to the left, start rounding forward into flexion. Good. Keep going all the way until you're centered back into flexion. Take a breath here. On that exhale, can you round up your spine a little more into a ball? And now we go to the left. Twist and rotate as far as you can to the left. Then begin to extend. Finding that active effort to lift your sternum as you rotate back to the right. Hugging yourself the whole time. And then keep that rotation to the right as you begin rounding forward into flexion. Come back to your starting point. Good. Come up for air for a second. Okay. I want us to do one more rep. And this one can be very challenging just to kind of piece through. So if that's where you're at, that's great. If this is a more comfortable move for you, I want to invite you to try to chase the cramp monster. What I mean is that whatever tissue is shortening, try to send a little bit more intensity and see if you can ignite a little bit of a cramp sensation, which tells us you've really gotten to your end range contraction. Okay, so here we go. Wrap your arms up either around the prop or around your ribs. Find that glute squeeze to extend your hips, and then start from the top of your spine, curling your chin into your neck, then dropping your chin, rounding your upper back, really rounding through the mid back and trying even to stretch your lower back. Once you're here, find that cramp sensation if possible on the front, and then twist to the right, spending so much effort that you're looking for a cramp here as well. Then keep that rotation and start to extend your spine, getting longer and taller through the top of your spine as you move through midline, twisting to the left. Keep that twist to the left and begin rounding forward into flexion. Pausing again when you get to the midline. Take a second for a breath. Try to drive even more contraction to chase that cramp monster now to the left. Good. Finishing your twist, moving into extension. Taking care to not let your body start to rush through this drill, but really lingering through all of these contraction moments so that you can bring these positions into your usable range. Great work. And take your time to finish into flexion and then relax and let it go. Awesome. Okay, now shake that out. Hopefully you're feeling a bit warm and ready to add some strength inputs to the mix. We're going to now do our first set of push-ups, and here's where I'd encourage you to start with your hands more elevated than you think you're going to need. So again, we'll start with the bench. We've already sort of assessed and tested out, and this is the right height for Marley. So whatever surface you're going to work on, maybe move your screen there, and then let's get started. So place your hands on the surface, step your feet back so you're in a plank position, and just take a moment to really get some cues on this plank. I like to encourage people to start with their hips way too high, like almost like you're doing downward dog position, and then curl your tailbone under and use that scoop under to bring your hips back into line. This should end up feeling like your body's in a little bit of a arc or a curve, and that's good. That means the front line of your body is nice and strong. And then finish up your strong plank by pushing the surface fully away so your shoulder blades slide as far apart as possible. So I put my hand on Marley's back so she can feel, I'm going to push my spine away from that surface. Okay, so this is the shape for your push-up. Go ahead, come off of that surface for a second and shake it out. So when we get back here, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to do, 3 to 5 reps, nice and smoothly, because I want you to feel like you're doing a number of reps that doesn't burn you out, but does feel like a challenge. So we're going to kind of hone in on this, all right? So set your hands back up. Start with your hips too high and then curl your tailbone under to squeeze your butt. Push that surface away. And then from here, begin a nice controlled descent, trying to get your sternum all the way to the surface. Good, making sure you don't go too slow to burn out. And then push yourself back up all the way apart with the shoulder blades. Keep going at your pace. Again, we're shooting for 3 to 5 reps, feeling like a challenge, but not like a grind, not like you're gonna burn out. Good. Keeping those fingers gripping. Final rep here. And come all the way up. Great, and shake that out. So here's your moment to think, okay, next round of push-ups, do I need a lower surface? Or if it was too hard, do I need a little higher surface? Think through that piece, and then we're gonna give your shoulders some inputs here, all right? So come on back to the wall, and here I'm gonna have Marley again show this from seated, but you could just as well do it from standing. You're gonna be perpendicular to the wall, place your right arm out in front of you, and keeping a bend in your elbow, just scooch that elbow away from your body, so you're really sliding your shoulder blade away. Okay, and then grab onto your wrist with your free arm and start feeling how much internal rotation is available in this right shoulder. Okay, so you can bring it down, feel your end range, and then bring it back up. We're just going to do a few passes to try to find end range. And as you do, really try to hone in on that twisting feeling right at the shoulder. We're not interested in just getting the knuckles to the wall and letting the elbow drop. What we really want is pure rotation of that shoulder joint. Good. As you settle into what feels like end range this next time, just hold it there and try to ask your nervous system to relax into this stretch. So that could be come from a variety of ways of sort of talking to yourself. One that I like is, can I lean into the wall a little bit more? Another one is, can I change the way I'm pushing with my other hand to provide just a little bit clearer stretch sensation in the back of that right shoulder? Finally, can I let something go in my neck? Because very often this position will trigger some tightness in the neck that is not necessary, but is very common. Okay, and then from this end range, let's give it a little isometric input. So without letting anything move, start asking that right wrist to try to lift up, but your left hand is going to be too strong, not going to let it move. As you start to get a feel for that, you could also imagine pushing your elbow into the wall. So your wrist is trying to come up, your elbow is trying to push into the wall, and those counter motions or counter cues can give that rotational tissue in your shoulder a little bit more of a direct input. As you feel that, begin ramping it up smoothly to about 20% effort. If it feels good, go up to 30% effort. Now we're going to just hold it about 30% effort for this first set, keeping that input and intensity consistent for another 5, 4, 3, 2, and relax, maybe finding even more stretch into the shoulder. Good. Just take one final breath here. Feeling that this new position is okay. All right? And then take your left hand away and just give your right shoulder a few rotational inputs to invite some motion back into that joint. Maybe noticing how things feel different, or maybe just feeling that rotation is a clearer ask in your body now. Great. Okay. Now I'm going to have you turn around, go left arm on the wall, And I'll have Marley just show one other setup. If kneeling is not feeling good or if standing's not quite right, another version of this that I like is just sitting on the ground, kind of in a modified 90-90. So I'll kind of cue Marley into that here. So left arm will be out in front of you. Right leg is back behind like a kind of a 90-90 or modified 90-90. The key here is that your spine feels totally relaxed. Like you can really just lean your shoulder into the wall. Your hips and knees aren't a distraction. And then with the neck staying nice and long, grab onto that left wrist and rotate yourself toward your end range of internal rotation. Okay. Take a few passes, because especially if this is new, this position can be very scary feeling to your body and to your nervous system. So we want to just dip our toes in to start. Got to be careful with my my body cues, because we're definitely not stretching your toes right now. Okay, now on this next one, settle into the most amount of internal rotation that feels safe. Again, hunting for a stretch in the back part of the shoulder. If you don't feel a stretch, it's best to just go to where you feel some resistance on that motion, and then that's where we'll do our isometrics. Okay, now make sure you're comfortable for our first Pale's contraction. Very lightly begin trying to lift your left wrist, but block it with your right hand. And then at the same time, ask that left elbow to get a little heavier into the wall, maybe thinking of dragging it down the wall. And that combination of elbow down, wrist up should help your shoulder understand the rotational input we're trying to ask from it right now. As you get a sense of that, begin ramping it up smoothly and steadily. Finding a 20% contraction, then a 30% contraction if that feels good. And now hold that consistent effort, feeling your body working, but knowing you could turn it way up, but you're not, for 3, 2, and smoothly relax that effort. Okay, now shake it out a little bit. We're going to get another set of those capsule rotations for the shoulder, just to invite some movement back before we get our second set of push-ups. All right, now come away from the wall. Now, quick note on push-ups, but really any exercise technique or exercise form questions that come up. So obviously there's kind of a generally better way to do push-ups and a generally not so good way to do push-ups. Actually, there's a lot of not so good ways to do push-ups. But the key point I want to have come across in this class is that your form is most influenced by how awake and alive your joints are. So if we wake up the shoulder joints a little bit more, it makes sense that now you'll have more information to work with and your body might select into a little bit more efficient form, and I want you to let that happen. The key point here is that you need to bring a lot of intensity to the party, a lot of contraction. So as you come back to your push-up setup, maybe finding the right surface for your hands this time, a little different than last. Set up into that plank position and just check. Again, your glutes are squeezed, you're pushing the surface away, and then take a second and make sure that you feel like your hands and your arms are on, they're active. That might feel like you're gripping the surface. That might feel like you're trying to hug the ground or pull the floor or pull the surface together with your hands. Anything you can do to turn up more intensity. And now go ahead, do your 3 to 5 push-ups. Nice controlled pace, but don't feel like you have to grind them out. Okay, so you keep it moving, you keep your plank strong. Good, and you bring your whole body down to that surface. Good, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Good, shake that out. Okay, so come back to the wall and set up again with your right arm out in front of you. We're just gonna get a second input of exactly what we did a second ago, because the return trip always has some interesting insights in terms of sensations to be found. So start with that elbow in front of you, neck is long, and then rotate your shoulder into the clearest end range stretch you can find. Good. It might be more rotation than you found before. It might be less, and that might be a good thing, because if you get a more specific twist on the shoulder, it might show up as less rotation or less motion, but now the stretch is maybe a little clearer, and that's a huge win. Okay? Now settling into this position, don't let anything move as you begin asking that right wrist to try to come upwards into your left hand. As you do, you can feel that elbow or that upper arm trying to drag down the wall, so you get the counter rotation. And then ramp this up through 20%, 30%, maybe even 40% or 50% if that's feeling good and safe for you. And hold this consistent effort. Asking those tiny muscles in the shoulder that are on stretch right now to get a little bit stronger. 3, 2, 1. Keep your position but melt away the effort. Noticing maybe you're able to stretch further, but just checking out what it feels like. And then try your best to keep your right wrist right where it is. Slowly take your left hand away. Good. And move right into another set of capsule rotations. So you bring your wrist up, this is external rotation, and then back down to hunt for how does active internal rotation feel after these isometrics. Good. Twisting, twisting, finding that fight for more moment. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. Relax that. Come off the wall. Turn around. We get the same thing on the other side. Good. So take a second to get that shoulder blade away from your ears. Slide the shoulder forward and the elbow forward. And then right hand grabs onto the left wrist to twist your shoulder into end range internal rotation. And taking a few passes, because now you know what you're after, both in terms of the shape and the sensation in your body. So we can try to get a little bit clearer on that stretch that will be around the back of the shoulder, ideally. You might also feel it down the arm. You might feel it a little more on the top of the shoulder. If you feel it purely on the front of the shoulder, then we want to back off from that sensation a bit and just work at more of a mid-range, and that'll be fine. Okay, now settling in. Brace your body so nothing is going to move as we begin this Pale's contraction, trying to lightly lift your left wrist up into your right hand. Add to that the feeling of dragging your left elbow down the wall, but nothing's going to move. And then once you've locked onto that rotational input, begin ramping it up. So adding intensity, adding effort, getting the rest of your body to play along and work with you. Ramping it through 20%, 30%, 40%, and if it feels safe, all the way up to 50%. So you still have room to build. It's not a maximum effort in your body, but it should feel like it pretty intense for those stretched tissues in your shoulder. For 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Great. Okay. Take that right hand away slowly, so your left wrist is left in rotation, and then smoothly explore unwinding that shoulder to get some capsule rotation for the shoulder. Finding the active effort to reach into more internal rotation, and the active effort to make your wrist heavy into the wall by your forehead. Back and forth. Good. This is often called like the save and upload portion, where we're letting the brain in on how does this new position feel? How does it feel to get in and out of that position? Can very much help long-term holding on to these changes. All right, and come away from the wall. So as we go back to the push-ups for another set, one of the most common obstacles or challenges that I see people make, especially when they're working on an elevated surface, is actually to have like kind of their shoulders and their body weight too far over their hands. So if I show you on the floor, when I'm on the floor, this would basically look like I'm bringing too much body weight onto my hands. That's going to be a big challenge for anybody's shoulders. So as you set up for this next push-up, I want you to just take a moment to consciously shift your weight back towards your feet, no matter where your hands are. Yeah, just overdo it one way, and then overdo it the other way. Bring your weight way forward over your fingers. And just try going back and forth a few times until you feel like you've found what would be like close to a right angle at your shoulder and ribs. So right now to my eye, Marley actually could come back a little bit. Yeah, and then we have a little closer to a 90-degree angle, which on a surface might feel like the surface is out in front of you, not that you're over the surface, and that's okay. All right, so now brace, get ready. We do our third set of push-ups. Go for it, team. 3 to 5 reps, trying your best to find that right angle at your shoulder at the top. There you go. Great. Good stuff. Pushing the surface away every time, keeping your butt squeezed for a nice strong plank. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Good. I thought I saw Marley thinking about doing another rep, but leaving it in the can. Very smart, because we're going to come back for some more. Okay, so now you're going to want to grab your trusty yoga block. We'll use this one, a little bit easier to see. And you're going to come down into a face down position in a moment. So just take a look first so you see where we're headed. And I'll have Marley use her left hand as a pillow for the head, but if that doesn't feel good on your arm, you might also want to grab a little towel right now or a little pillow for your forehead. Okay, but in a moment, you'll set up with your forehead resting, your right elbow is straight out to the side from your armpit, and it's resting on the block, probably in this lowest setting of the block. Okay, and then I'll cue you through all of this, but the motion generally will look like a rotation into external rotation, trying to really center that contraction on the back of the shoulder, not letting the lower back freak out, and add rotation. And then from this position, we would just lift the elbow slightly off the block. Marley's able to get a lift here, but you might not necessarily need to. You just make it light on the block and therefore feel more contraction on the back of the armpit. Okay, so come down into this position. Take a second as you lay down on your stomach to make sure your forehead is resting comfortably, your nose has room, and your lower back is relaxed here. Okay, so just letting your body melt. That's a tough thing actually, sometimes laying on your stomach to let your lower back relax. Sometimes you'll want to throw a pillow underneath your stomach just to help with that. Then from this position, getting the elbow on the block, the knuckles will start on the ground. And brace your body. So make your feet heavy and your left arm heavy into the ground to feel the front of your body turn on. And then begin asking that wrist and knuckles to come away from the ground while the elbow stays parked so that you can really start to feel rotation. You can lower the knuckles, tap the floor, and back up. Just get a sense of, again, that rotation happening right where your arm bone meets your body. And even more specifically, trying to feel the tissue that is contracting in the back of the shoulder to create this twist. Because it's really about talking to the tissue, not just about the movement. Good. On the next rep, as you lift your wrist, make sure your body is braced and give it a nice maximum effort twist. When you think you're at your maximum height, work to keep the elbow higher, or the wrist higher than the elbow, and then slowly ask that elbow to get lighter and lighter on the block, which would open your chest up. Hold that contraction that you found for 3, 2, 1, and then a slow motion parachute landing, elbow down and wrist down. Good. So you're face down, so you can't see it, but Marley's finding a little shake going on because she really centered in on the contraction being maximum effort at this end range position. All right, let's find it again. Brace your body. Externally rotate your arm to bring the hand away from the floor. Whatever your maximum height is, really fight for it, keep it, as we now ask that elbow to get light on the block, maybe lifting off, and if it is, try to lift it off higher, but don't let the wrist drop relative to the elbow. For 3, 2, 1, slow motion meltdown to feel those fighting tissues slowly give way. Good. Those are gold nuggets for your brain to understand this position. Last one on this side, brace your body. Make sure those abs are part of the mix. Then externally rotate your shoulder. Then keep that external rotation. Slowly ask the elbow to get lighter and lighter. Keeping track that your neck is not just jumping in here, but the contraction's really at the back of the shoulder. For 3, 2, 1, and relax. Awesome job. Very nice. Okay, melt your body away. And as you get set up on this other side, I want to just chat quickly about the tendency for your neck to get involved anytime we work on external rotation, or actually any rotation of the shoulder. So setting up here, as you get your elbow propped up and your forehead propped up, you want to sense into your neck for a moment, especially on that left side where you're going to be contracting, and just feel into that area, sense into that area, and ask that area to relax. You could use your other hand to touch into it if you want, because sometimes this can be chronically tight. But as we do this next set, I want you to only rotate the arm and only lighten the elbow as much as you can without the neck jumping on. That might be surprisingly soon for you, just depending on how active your neck is. But just wanted to name that because we don't want to be training the neck here. We want to really be training the back of the shoulder. All right, here we go. Brace your body. Externally rotate that knuckle away from the floor and just do a few reps up and down to sense into the twist, maybe noticing how it's different on this arm. Just to adjust the block a little bit for. There we go. Good. And just feeling, oh, maybe you have more lift on this side or less. Good. One more rep to find your end range. Really staying braced here. Lift. Now hold this end range rotation. Don't let the wrist drop at all. Start asking that elbow to get lighter and lighter on the block. Being okay with it just getting light and not lifting. For 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Slowly melt it down. Good. Rep 2, starting from 0% effort. Neck is nice and long and relaxed. Begin externally rotating. Find your end range rotation wherever that might be. Hold on to it with some real effort and then slowly make your elbow lighter and lighter on the block. Yeah, maybe levitating it this round, or maybe just finding more contraction. For 3, 2, 1, slow motion meltdown. Elbow drops and the wrist comes down like a parachute. Okay, final rep here. I want you to treat this like the hardest strength training drill you can imagine, maybe like a push-up or something like that, and then send that amount of intensity to the back of your shoulder. Brace, externally rotate the shoulder, then keep that external rotation as you ask the elbow to get lighter and lighter, maybe being surprised when it comes away from the block, but not forcing it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Parachute landing down to feel those same muscles slowly relaxing. Great work. Okay, shake that out. Come back for another set of push-ups. It's almost like it's a push-up themed class. Okay, and find your hands on the surface. Another great variable to play with is if it feels like your body wants your hands a little wider, give it a try right now. There's no one right way to do a push-up. It's very much based on your body and your joints. Once you find that width, shift weight forward and back a couple times to find your middle point. And then once you've found that, settle in and brace your body. Here we go. Fourth set of push-ups. Great work. Feeling strong the whole way down and up. Again, gripping the surface with your fingertips. Squeezing your glutes tight. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Very nice. Shake that out. I hope you're noticing any ways that your technique or your form is changing and evolving as you go, because again, we're giving the brain more information from the shoulders, and so of course it's going to select a little bit different technique, and that's a good thing. Okay, one more set from face down. Again, you won't be able to see this, so just take a gander at what we're going to do here first. Same exact setup as before, except this time we're going to be really focusing on the elbow joint. So once you're set up, you will rotate the shoulder, elevate the elbow, and then from here, straighten out the arm as much as possible, trying to feel your tricep get on tension, and then bend the elbow back. Good. Okay, set down for a second, Marley. Now, one more piece that's going to make this even spicier is that I'm going to have your thumb be up so that when we're out here, straightened out, you can ask that shoulder to externally rotate further by thinking of pointing your thumb behind you. Okay? With that thumb pointed behind you, if the elbow is levitated, when you go to bend your elbow, it's going to be even more contraction for those external rotators in your shoulder. So each rep, straighten out, get more twist, and then try to hold on to that twist as you come back. The whole time the elbow is just hovering. All right? Let's give it a shot here. It's going to be 30 seconds of spicy goodness for the shoulder. Brace your feet and your arm into the floor. Feel your abs. Once you feel stable, ask the shoulder to externally rotate. Thumb points up. From here, keep that rotation and ask the elbow to levitate, actually getting it clear off the block. And then keep that position of your elbow as you straighten your arm. And here we are on the clock. Doing your best to not let the upper arm move, but just bend at the elbow, moving back and forth, trying to add and keep as much external rotation on the shoulder as you can, shaking, working, fighting for that cramp monster in the back of the shoulder for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Yes. Okay, great job. Go ahead, switch over to the other side. We're going to get the same input on that side. And take your time here to make sure that block is straight out to the side, your elbow is comfy, your body is in a comfortable shape, and you're melted into the floor to start. We always want to start from 0. All right, now brace your midsection. Arm gets heavy, feet get heavy. Externally rotate the shoulder with the thumb pointing up. And once you get that thumb as high as possible, slowly ask that elbow to come away from the block. And then keeping that little hover, start to straighten your arm, doing your best to not let your upper arm move. Marley's doing a great job of this, but the tendency might be for your elbow to drop down towards your hip, and we want to keep it right over that spot that it was resting on the block. Halfway there. You got it. Keep trying to wind up more external rotation, especially as the arm straightens, and then hold on to that rotation as it bends for 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax wherever you're at. Great stuff. All right. So as you come up from here, shake it out. For our final set of push-ups, I'm actually going to have you do this last set of push-ups on the floor. Now, if you look at me and you're like, what the? I'm not going to do push-ups to the floor. I want you to do them from your knees if it feels like too much to do them from the plank, and we're only going to be working the way down, okay? But to give you a quick little rest here, I just want to give you an idea that the muscles in the back of the shoulder end up working sort of like the decision makers for the rest of the muscles in the shoulder. And what's weird here is that those decision makers are actually pretty small muscles, but they drive how the much bigger muscles in your chest and your shoulders and the back of your arms are actually able to work. So that's why sometimes this external rotation work can be so helpful to help with any pushing, push-ups, handstands, whatever, because now your shoulder has a little bit more sense of safety or a sense of brakes on the back of the shoulder. All right, for this final set of push-ups, again, we're gonna be working from the floor. You're only gonna work the way down, but then once you're on the ground, we're gonna add a little bit of extra input for scapular retraction of getting those shoulder blades back. So I'm gonna have Marley do another quick rep so you can just see. Let's say you're working from the knees as well, okay? So you would, again, start with your hips behind, curl your tailbone under to find a great plank, bringing those hips forward into that plank, and then you would slowly lower. For now, she's gonna do it fast, all the way to the ground. Once the chest is on the ground, then I'll say lift, and you're gonna try to lift your hands and fingers away from the floor to get as much contraction for the insides of the shoulder blades as possible. Okay, so go ahead and make your way into your plank of choice, either from the knees or from the straight legs, and then set up with those hips curling under like we did before. Okay, I don't even know, is Marley gonna go from knees or plank? Go from knees, perfect. So whatever one you're setting up into, make sure your hips are between your shoulders and your knees. Keep that glute squeeze nice and strong, and then with my count, start lowering your chest to the ground. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, slowing yourself down, 3, 2, this should feel like the hardest position, 1, and then smoothly set your chest down. Take a breath in, keep your body braced, and lift your hands away from the ground. Maybe they'll come off, maybe they'll just get light, but you're trying to find that cramp monster right between your shoulder blades for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Good. Don't do your push up, just peel yourself up any easy way you can find. Okay, second rep. Again, choose. Are you going to go from the knees or from the straight legs? We're going to do a little bit longer set, 15-second lower, okay? So find your plank, grip the floor, and then here we go, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. At some point, it'll just feel like you're slowing yourself down, and that's the right feel. 4, 3, 2, 1, chest relaxes to the ground, body still braced, and lift. Try to get those palms and fingers off the ground so that this is also a wrist input as well as that upper back for 4, 3, 2, 1, and melt it. Okay, last one, we're gonna draw it out even longer, 20 seconds. If you get all the way down towards the bottom and you're just holding on here, I want you to try to hold and come to a complete stop right off the floor. Otherwise, you're just trying to spread out the work all the way through the movement. All right, here we go. Find your plank. Butt is squeezed, floor is pushed away. And now slowly, 20, 19, 18, 17. Where in your body could you convince to work a little harder? 12, 11, gripping the floor, 9, 8, 7, 6, really pushing the earth away even as you keep dropping, 3, 2, 1, and relax, chest down to the ground, brace your body, and final lift. Pull those elbows away from the floor, pull those hands. Don't let this just be a lower back exercise, but actually focus on the upper back and shoulder blades for 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. All right. Go ahead, peel yourself off the ground or stay there for a little nap, up to you. Thanks so much for your effort. This is a tough class, so I'm curious to hear any questions you have and curious to hear how the push-ups felt.